Hello everybody and welcome to our Pathway to Success series. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Emma Hardaker. Emma has had one of the most varied and interesting careers of any candidate or client I've worked with in my 20-year career. So I'm really pleased to have you here today. Emma's held such a varied number of roles. You're a barrister, you're a consultant, you've worked within the wealth management space, and of course now in your current role as Head of Compliance and Head of Financial Crime at Lloyd in London. So welcome, Emma.
Thank you.
Let's start right at the beginning. What first drew you to the world of compliance and financial crime?
I wouldn't say it was an attraction, I'd say it was an accident. And I don't know anyone who ended up in financial crime or compliance as a deliberate choice, at least not of my generation. I was finishing up at the criminal bar. I was leaving because crime only pays the criminals when you're a lawyer. And so what I decided to do was I was going to leave, get some experience in the city and come back again. And what I found when I got some city experience was the combination of having a legal mind, understanding regulation and financial services just drew me across to the compliance space.
Fantastic. And then so that first move into regulatory consultancy?
Well, no. I went to Deloitte to do second line work at Deloitte. And I went there to do conflicts of interest checking, which in a professional services firm is a really big deal. 2 weeks after I got there, the deputy money laundering reporting officer was leaving, and my then boss said, you look like you might know a bit about this crime thing. Do you fancy it? And because I was very junior and I'd only been there 2 weeks, instead of saying no, I said, yeah, of course.
Fantastic. And obviously that person had a kind of, I suppose, unintentional pivotal moment in your career to kind of help you get into it. Were there any other people in the early stages of your career who kind of inspired or shaped your decision making as it pertained to your future career?
So I would say actually the woman who then became my boss at Deloitte, so part of the deal when my boss at the time said, do you fancy this job, was can I meet the person that I'm working for? And it's a lady called Karen Silcock who was a Deloitte partner, now retired, and she's quite a force of nature. She taught me actually how to be a female professional in what back then was a tough man's world. So Karen gave me a lot of inspiration, but she also most valuably gave me sponsorship and the freedom to explore my talents and capabilities in a really interesting and fascinating space.
And that's something that I think we'll come back to, towards the end of the conversation about advice that you would give. But in terms of then that kind of stages of your career within the consultancy space, obviously very different to being a barrister. What do you think, or am I wrong? Were there similarities between being a barrister and being a consultant, or what carried over into?
I think the legal background, the legal training really helped. Also, as a baby barrister, you take your own decisions from day one, and you have to rely on your own judgment from day one. And I think having that professional training and that level of confidence in your own abilities puts you in a great place to be able to take those things on in a bigger corporate environment.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I carried over the most.
Sure. And then after that sort of first stage of your career, or second stage of your career with the consultant, you then made the move into the wealth management space with Barclays,
yep.
Which for me is a great move because it's consulting into industry. How did that come about?
I have to blame the late Danos, who recruited me into the Barclays wealth role. He approached me and said, look, I think you'd be great at this job, and he persuaded me that I could do it, and in that very gentle, meet the person you'll be working for, just have a little chat. And lo and behold, 6 months later, there I was off to work for Barclays.
Well, he was certainly very convincing. I know that for certain. But when you got there, did you, was it daunting? Was it? Did you have the kind of the imposter syndrome of what I'm doing here? How did you cope with that?
I I think it was a shock. I've been at Deloitte for 10 years, and you get very used to the way an organisation works. You get used to its culture. You get used to its systems, and you see the good and the bad in all of that, and you think, oh, this is a huge global bank. This works, seamlessly, doesn't it? No, and I think that was the biggest shock, was just whatever an organisation looks like on the outside, there's so much work, good work that goes on the inside to giving that, making that organisation work.
Fantastic. So your career then developed through Barclays, and as you progressed more into leadership roles, what were some of the sort of biggest challenges that you had to navigate in terms of how you did your role day to day?
So I left Deloitte as a director, so was already moving through those leadership roles before I got to Barclays, and probably the biggest development point for me there was failing the director process the first time round. And
how did that make you feel?
God, I was cross. I was really angry. How dare people judge me like that? And then I took a deep breath, gave myself a big talking to, and decided to listen and engage with the process. And it was a real lesson for me in self-awareness and in how I come across to other people, and in learning to flex my style. So in terms of leadership and management, one thing I try to do now is really flex my style, flex my approach to people, so that I can get the best out of them. Very often that's also the best for me too.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And had you noticed, as you progressed further into your career and left Barclays, and now in your current role as chief of head of compliance and financial crime for Lloyd's of London, it's obviously a different world, a different sector, but can you identify things that you carried across from your previous experience, either as a consultant or at Barclays, to the work you're now doing at Lloyd's?
Always, because I think management is management wherever you go, and I always say to my team, be careful what you wish for, because if what you really enjoy is the technical stuff, the more you get promoted, the less of it you do, and the more it becomes about people. And I'd say the overall lesson that I have from my career is learning to enjoy the people management, enjoy the team building, and also to enjoy the opportunity to build and create things with people.
Sure.
Being a barrister is can be quite lonely.
Mm-hmm.
You're on your own, you're making your own decisions, you don't tend to work with big teams of people on day-to-day cases. Having to learn, let's work as a team. That's probably the thing that I've carried over the most.
That's really interesting. And again, I think, when I look at your role now with Lloyd's of London, that's such a, Lloyd's of London is such a unique organisation in lots of ways. What made you want to join Lloyd's? What was the motivation behind it? How it came about as well? Because again, it's such a different world to what you were in.
So I was working at Deloitte, but I'd gone client side, I'd gone first line, so I was actually doing the consulting. And the opportunity came up for an interim head of fin crime at Lloyd's, and I knew nothing about insurance, and I went to the interview and said, look, I know nothing about insurance, but I know an awful lot about financial crime. And the insurance bit I can learn. And I think they were probably desperate, so they went, yeah, you'll do. The first thing they asked me to do was write the job description. Excellent. For my role, and I was sitting there writing it going, I could do this. And then when the recruitment came up, I thought, I'm enjoying being here. I like the organisation. I've got a thing here that I can build and grow, and Lloyd's is a unique institution. The opportunity was just too much to pass up.
Fantastic. And as we look kind of forward with your career at Lloyd's, I mean, one of the things we talk a lot about with other CCOs and senior people is the future skill sets that compliance officers or financial crime officers will need. Be good to get your insight. What do you think the future in terms of a skill set perspective should we be looking for, or should we be encouraging people to focus on?
I'm going to say something that might be slightly controversial. Everything's about AI these days, and absolutely AI has got a role to play. And I think it's really important that as a profession we learn how to explain AI to regulators. If we're going to use it, you have to be able to articulate why it works and how you know it continues to work. The controversial bit is I don't think it's going to be quite the game changer anybody thinks it is, and that is down to the data and the quality of the data that's flowing across the financial services system. It's not as cohesive or coherent as I think any of us would like. So I don't think it's going to be the big player that we think it is. I think the skill set that we should all be looking to develop is really broad view of what goes on across the system, and thinking about then what is possible across the financial services system and how to make that work. So thinking about the blockers within our own organisations or more broadly within the industry. So it's thinking much bigger. I
agree with you completely, and again, one of the reasons why I was really keen to get you on this series is because you've had such a broad career, and I think it's a testament to anyone who, I think it should be a real inspiration, a testament to anyone who thinks, oh, I've only worked within investment banking, that's the only place I can ever go. Because if you understand risk, if you understand governance, if you understand compliance, you can learn the products. Okay, you might not learn to the absolute depth of a trader, but you can absolutely make the move across. If you could send one piece of career advice back to your younger self, what would that be? Would you not be so angry when you don't make director first time around? Or would you go even further back?
No, I'd go even further back, and I'd go back to the moment when I left the bar, and the decision I made then was, I'll go and see what this is like and come back. I'd say, you're not coming back, or at least not in a hurry, but actually that'll be a really good thing, because I stepped out of that with no idea where I was going to end up. I've really enjoyed my career thus far. I hope it's not over yet. And so just to give my younger self that comfort of, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and taking the opportunity is not going to be a bad thing.
Sure. And then we always ask, if there was anyone listening today, if you were to give them one piece of kind of career advice as to how to navigate their way, through the world of compliance and financial crime, what would that be?
I would say, think big, be prepared to think strategically, and just look for the opportunities, keep your mind open. The world's always changing.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Cheers.